What it is, y'all, it's your old boy Pilk, and I'm back with episode 11. Guys, this episode was as absolutely insane and nutty as I expected. Of course, we're going to kick off this episode just by talking about that episode recap. We had 90 seconds of the last fight from the last episode, and I'm going to tell you guys, I watched that at least a dozen times from last week's episode. I watched the whole episode 3 times. I watched that like at least a dozen times. That fight was insane, and I love the fact that it wasn't just like one-sided hero fight. It was like brutal and visceral. And when Bell gets his neck like basically tail whipped, you hear the snap and the crunch, and it is just absolutely insane. But Ryu runs to his safety, and you basically she mentions that like the scarf. Because remember, the scarf is made out of special materials. The scarf is basically a shield in of itself, as we'll see later in the episode. Basically, the scarf saved him. It was just like basically that side. He just barely saved his life. If it had been slightly stronger hit, or had he not had the scarf or something like that, he would have been absolutely killed. But Ryu does like a basic healing skill on him, but obviously it's just like Band-Aid on a bleeding wound. It is not enough to reattach the limb or anything like that. But of course, Ryu then jumps into the action. And the one thing that I love here is, and barely nobody's paying attention, because Boris and his crew pull out these weapons that have like magic powers imbued in them. We already saw this thing basically deflect and basically reflect magic skills, and they just didn't pay attention, and the magic weapons basically are cast back at them, and of the 3 attacking, 2 of them are basically cooked alive. It's brutal. And Boris is the last one standing, and he can't even, hold his own against this monster. But Ryu's in there, and Ryu takes a beating trying to save him, too. And Ryu's just like, get out of here. You gotta go. Meanwhile, she gets, like, stabbed in the shoulder, stabbed in the leg. Like, Ryu's taking so much damage. Now, in the meantime of all this, Bell is, of course, dropped in the water, and now he's basically sinking to the bottom. And I cannot believe I forgot entirely about this, because this was foreshadowed at the beginning of the series. Bell falls in the water. Marie swims up to him, and if you remember, her blood is basically liquid healing factor. So she's even able to reattach his limb, fully resuscitate him. I cannot believe I forgot entirely about that. Yes, you could call it a MacGuffin, you can call it what you will, but what I love about this is Bell basically comes back with a Zenkai boost and starts going at the Juggernaut even more effectively than ever before. And it's basically just him and what's left of Ryu, because she's now badly damaged. And Bell, like I mentioned before, he wraps the scarf that saved his neck. Literally, wraps that around his arm, is able to use that as a shield. So he's basically got, left hand shield, right hand is a knife, and he's going at the Juggernaut. And this is just one of those like insane moments where he's like remembering eyes, remembering Asterius, and he's just like, they wouldn't back away from this fight. They would keep swinging and keep going. And so that's literally what he does, just headlong into the Juggernaut, and it is wild. Absolutely wild. And it's not even like he really gets the upper hand. He's just... It's a stopgap measure at best. The Juggernaut is getting damaged, and he's able to like basically mitigate a lot of his movements. He's not able to jump around. He's not as agile as he once was, but obviously he's only doing so much. But the Juggernaut does eventually get the upper hand a little bit, and Bell is knocked back. And in the meantime, basically what Bell does is he charges up a firebolt. Now, obviously, we've already seen magic doesn't work. Magic is completely ineffective. But he basically fires that at the Juggernaut. It's deflected back at him, and the best part about this, he charges up the Argo Vest to attack again, and just goes in. And I mean, it is once again like a stopgap measure. Everybody's damaged in this exchange, with one exception. The Juggernaut clearly takes a ton of damage here, but out from the shadows comes Juro, the cat dude who was trying to like capture this beast, and literally he takes the stone, and ensnares the Juggernaut. And I was like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. But knowing that this is a different type of monster, what happens next was semi-predictable, but also still a bit shocking. He's standing next to him, he's gloating, and then you see the dungeon kind of inverts a little bit. And that's when Jorah's, the upper half of his body lands behind Bell, and he is cleaved clean into by the Juggernaut. Juggernaut is not going to be tamed. The Juggernaut is not affected by this at all. The Juggernaut kills him. I mean, just murders him. And the look on his face, just the shock and the horror, even though he's like, the most repugnant of villains, it still is, I don't want to say sympathetic, but it is a bit shocking to see someone treated like that. But, it's not, the Juggernaut's been cleaving people into this whole time. So I guess lacking the magic stones means that he can't be tamed. I'm guessing that, or it's the special type of beast that he is. Maybe he can't be tamed either. But I kind of take it as that magical item requires the magic stones and all that stuff. So, nevertheless, it's just speculation. I've not read the light novels up to this point. I actually stopped a little bit because I wanted to get this organically. And oh my god, this episode was insane, guys. I absolutely loved this episode. So we get back to it. It is now Bell versus the Juggernaut, and Ryu's damaged, and the giant snake, the what are they called? The Balin, not Balin. Balin's the big dragon. Anyway, the snake basically rears up and just like goes to chomp down on Ryu, and you see Bell running at her, and then the snake shuts its mouth, burrows under the ground. Juggernaut chasing shortly after them. And it's like, that is kind of that. It's kind of the last we see of them for a while. Meanwhile, we get back to the rest of the crew. We've got back to Lily, Aisha, and literally the rest of the familias that are accompanying Hestia Familia. And the ground is shaking. The entire basically, but we can tell the dungeon is quaking, and Lily's like, "This cannot be happening. The dungeon boss should not be responding for another 2 weeks. This is unprecedented." And Aisha's even like, "Look, we've seen so much stuff happen. You can just pretty much, all bets are off at this point. Anything goes." And that's, of course, when the floor boss from floor 27 spawns, actually ascends up the cascade, and is there in front of them, this two-headed fire and ice dragon. And it is a thing to behold. But, we've got some problems here. And this is pretty much where the episode more or less ends. Yes, bit of a cliffhanger. But I really can't wait to see what comes next, guys. This is course 1. Course 2 will be dropping, I believe, January. Don't quote me on this. I believe January 23rd of 2023. We should be getting the second part of this season, and I could not be more stoked. This is pretty nuts. But we do get we get a bit of a post-credit scene. So the snake monster, basically, it's mentioned that it's able to burrow through floors. And you do see Bell basically burst out of this thing. He uses his firebolt, blasts a hole in it, and he and Ryu exit its stomach on this floor. And Bell's looking around, and he's just like, "This isn't the floor we were on. Oh, no. This is something called the White Palace. This is like floor with 37, I believe. This is one of the lower floors." And he goes back and remembers an interaction that he had with Ina, where Ina's like warning him of this. She's like, you won't see this for a while. Don't worry. But of course, all things be what they are. now Belle and Ryu are kind of stuck here on the lower floors that they're ill prepared for and badly damaged. And the Juggernaut's still probably out there somewhere, I'm gathering, because it looked like he just kind of went in the burrow with them. And they hear monsters that they've never heard before off in the distance, or at least Belle's never heard before, off in the distance. And it is looking like the next season is going to be nuts, y'all. That is where Course 1 of Season 4 ends. And I am stoked. I am absolutely excited to see where this is going. I'm going to give this episode a 10 out of 10. I do want to take a little bit of points away because there was a lot of still footage and things like that. But honestly, for the action, for the pacing, for everything else, all of those were at least an 11 out of 10. It's a, man, dare I say the perfect episode. There's no such thing, but it's as close as I can imagine. And it is so incredibly good. Best way to wrap up the first part of Season 4. Part 2, like I said, is dropping, I believe, in January, so stay tuned for that. We'll be covering the episodes as they drop. I do have some more stuff coming out, obviously, on the Gacha game. We've got the stuff that from the Gacha game that accompanies this, little side story things that came with some of the light novels and drama CDs in Japan that accompanied this. So we'll be covering that as well. So if you have not subscribed, make sure you do so. If you guys are enjoying this review, let me know down below. I could definitely do some more anime reviews. I don't watch a huge amount of anime anymore, but it would give me a great excuse to go back and start watching more. There are some series that I absolutely want to catch. So if you guys are enjoying this, thumbs up button and the comment section is the best way to let me know. Other than that, guys, like, comment, and share, and I will see you guys for, if nothing else, Danmachi in January. But remember, we got the Gacha game. We got other stuff coming up. So hopefully I'll see you guys really soon.